Welcome to the ID10T podcast number 1049. Some Wizard Guitar Tour news. First of all, I'll be in San Francisco this weekend, Feb 27 through 29 at the Punchline Comedy Club in the year 2020. Punchline San Francisco, Feb 27, 29. And I was supposed to be in Sacramento March 5 through 7. I have to reschedule that. I humbly apologize that it's not something that I do lightly, but I'm shooting a few episodes of a television show, which I don't know if I can talk about yet, but anyway, and one of the shoot days is smack dab in the middle of that weekend, and they cannot change their production schedule. So I was committed to that, and it just came up, and it's only ever in a case like this that I would have to cancel a show. So I apologize, but I swear I will reschedule Sacramento very, very, very shortly. So that's that. There are other dates that I am still going to be able to do. Well, I'll reschedule. Sacramento will happen soon. I promise. We're going to get the first available dates for Sacramento. And if you're not mad about the rescheduling, then I hope you come out. Because the shows have been really fun. And I got some songs to sing with my wizard guitar. But let's talk about you, the ID10T community, and the corkboard, like Timothy, who writes, some childhood friends and I took our favorite thing to do when we get together and turned it into a podcast called On Second Watch. We choose a movie from our past, discuss our nostalgia, and rate it. Then we rewatch the film, share our new experiences, and re-rate it. Did it get better with age? Should it stay in the past? We also share some trivia and other knowledge bombs along the way. If you're interested in joining us on a cinematic trip through Nostalgia Land, find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcatcher of choice. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter to recommend our next movie. That is a real slippery slope, going back and rewatching stuff when you were a kid, because it's a toss-up, you know. Sometimes you get a golden goose, and other times it's just a soft turd. Oh my God, why did I think this was amazing? Or, some of the jokes are outdated and don't quite hold up anymore. And so it's a real crapshoot when you're going back and doing that. So I love that, Timothy, that you're doing a podcast about this, because you can tackle all that stuff. Events at ID10T.com is how you get your thing mentioned on the podcast. This is Justin Willman, this episode, he's been on the podcast before. Justin is a master magician and also has an incredible show on Netflix called Magic for Humans. Season 2 is up now, and season 3 is just around the corner. If you get a chance, you should see him while he's touring. His dates are at justinwillman.com, Willman. And I just love this guy. I've known him for many years. We toured the same college circuits at the same time. I did stuff with him at Meltdown, and we did a pilot together at Comedy Central. And so I am always rooting for this guy because he's such a sweet fellow and legitimately one of the most talented musicians I've ever seen. I'm laughing because it's that kind of anger inducing, like when you see a trick, you're like, oh, fucking come on, what? So it is that. If you ever get a chance to see him in person, you absolutely should, and watch his show. So here is the ID10T podcast number 1049 with the magic of Justin Willman.
Initiating ID10T protocol.
Pleased that for whatever reason I had the foresight to. I'm pleased that I had the floor sight to get the floor from Meltdown when Gaston announced that he was closing it, because this floor, like this green room floor, like so many amazing performers stood on this, and it was just the sort of like that little backstage area just off to the side, and I don't remember what the story behind it was.
It was like some art exhibit.
It was an art exhibit, and Gaston just chopped it up and threw it in and made it the floor.
Really, it was like some expensive, famous artist or some shit. And he's just like, yeah, it's a floor now.
Yeah, and so now I felt like, well, that has to live on. I have to preserve that.
That is a patina you couldn't recreate.
I'm excited for you, and I'm excited for your show. And I'll start off by saying that years ago, we produced a pilot for you at Comedy Central that was more in the vein of like, Comedy Central would always try to like redo that Chappelle Show format of like, in studio comedy, and then you'd throw to sketches. Yeah. And after I watched the first chunk of Magic for Humans, I remember saying to Lydia, like, I was always bummed that Justin's show didn't work out at Comedy Central, but I think this iteration, like this type of show, was so much better for you than than had it been on Comedy Central, like the Netflix of it all.
That was a blessing. I think it feels like as soon as you're on the stage, and Chappelle, of course, that format was so good, but I feel like there's this natural detachment from you, and it's a show about humans and connecting, so just being out in the world the whole time feels
but it's also that idea of like, like when things don't work out and you get bummed and you're like, fuck, you forget that it could lead to something, or it could send you in a direction that's way better than the thing you thought that you wanted, or the thing that you were bummed about.
Yeah, because we did 2 pilots for Comedy Central.
Another
one that was even, I think, further off the right path, but we learned a lot, which was trying to be political, solving America's problems with magic.
They really wanted, Comedy Central really wanted a political, which is why, at sort of near the end of At Midnight, they had us at 11:30 because they didn't have another 11:30 show. And they were like, well, we really want another political show to follow The Daily Show. And so we were like, but our show doesn't really work as a political, like trying to force politics into, it just wasn't. And so I think that was sort of part of the demise of At Midnight. But I remember saying to our shared manager, Alex Murray, after I saw the first season of Magic for Humans, is like, you really managed to do something which I don't see a lot in Magic, which is you're just yourself. You're just a dude. You're yourself. There's no, like, you communicate just like a guy who happens to be a world-class magician. And it works so well because these stories unfold throughout the sketches, or what do you call them? Like bits, sketches,
segments,
the segments, that I think works so well for you. And I said to Alex, like, Justin is so comfortable on stage, and on this show, and and I remember in the earlier, like when we did your pilot before, there was talk of like, oh yeah, don't perform it, like just be you,
right? And
you really figured that out in such a great way. So what was that's all to front load. And I know I'm saying a lot at once because there's a lot I want to talk about. But when Mike Furman and I used to do colleges and we do NACAs and stuff, and then you were also performing there as Just Incredible.
Yep.
And it was a very presentational act. So just give me an idea of your evolution, because I just think Magic for Humans, you stuck the landing on that so beautifully. But that is the result of years of experimentation and work,
years
and
of
growing.
Not sticking the landing.
I'm not even saying not sticking the landing, because you were an incredibly successful college act,
right.
Which was a very hard thing to achieve. So you had a ton of success before, but to me, Magic for Humans is so much you. Like, it's so much, you've really found your voice in such an amazing way. So I just want to hear about.
Well, that's what it is. I think for some reason it feels like it takes magicians longer to find their voice maybe than a comedian. It takes a comedian, I think, a long time to find their voice. But in Magic, it's almost like you're encouraged to mimic. You're encouraged to, model everything you do and say after Lance Burton or Mac King or Penn and Teller or Harry Anderson, So I think, and because, most magicians are kind of performing in their own local markets or kind of doing their own things, you can get away with not being fully original, and I did for a while. Like I had there were hints of this and, that joke is kind of, a Mac King line or this and that. And you kind of get away with it until you realize you're stifling your own kind of success. You've created a ceiling for yourself. And I think it really was a matter of finding, obviously, I think I had found who I am on stage, and and as a performer, but then to translate that to TV is kind of the trial and error that we went through, was figuring out, okay, how can you don't perform? You need to be on stage. You're not doing the jokes in front of real people. If you're out in the real world, who are you? Even though there's cameras filming and it is a fabricated situation in that, everyone knows that you're on TV right now, but how can you kind of make all that disappear? And I think it just comes, and NACA, like all those years on the road, was very useful in figuring out how to connect with people, you're presenting magic, but there's not like a pretense to it. You're not like some kind of this holier than thou vibe. And I feel like I think logging those 10,000 hours and, doing NACA for 10 years and, you're kind of on from the moment you show up. So you're kind of doing your act for the hour before the show, and then you got the show, but then afterwards you can kind of just the mingling, the meeting, and the kind of trying to establish relationships and create fans. Like that's all part of that connecting experience. And I think you just kind of figure out what works. And for me, I think maybe what made those things not hit, obviously the constraints of trying to do something for a Comedy Central, they have something very specific they want. But with Netflix, I was able to do it at a time when I actually had some life experience to talk about, like before when I was in my 20s, I think I wanted to have that show, but I didn't know what the show would be about except magic,
Right.
So then in my 30s, and then I, get married at 35, and now I have a kid. It's like, okay, now I actually can talk about stuff other than being a magician, because nobody can relate to just being a magician.
How do you have perspective on something if you don't know who you are?
Exactly.
And so it's almost like the greatest magic trick of all is figuring out who you are. But I love that, Jon Stewart had a thing when he was doing The Daily Show that I never forgot, that a producer told me that worked with him closely on that show, that said, John would always ask, like, what is this thing about? It's not just jokes. Like, what is it really about? What are you saying? And so even just to think about that is like, oh, wow. Because everyone as performers, hearing you say that about magic, it's the same thing with comedians where you go, oh, that sounds like a George Carlin joke. Oh, that sounds like a Patton Oswalt joke. Or that's this, that's that. And so it is the sort, because when you start performing, you think it's this other thing. I have to be this presentational person because you don't know who you are yet.
Right.
And so it is the constant journey, I feel like, of getting closer and closer and closer to the essence of who you are. And then once you figure that out, then the machine can turn on and activate. And now that I know who I am, I know how I see things. And you did such a great job of making Magic for Humans fun and relatable, but also really about stuff, like really about human dynamics and issues and things without feeling so heavy-handed.
I think where I kind of did the trial and error on that was even before the Comedy Central stuff on the Nerdist YouTube network when that launched. I did Magic Meltdown, which was a web series that you were instrumental in, and that was a chance to say, okay, if we could do a show about anything, you were like, you kind of gave a great pep talk about just how to approach this and how to make it, I think, magic that people kind of that is just disarming and real, and kind of reminded me the things that you liked about me, and wanted to make sure those things were a part of the show. And we were like, okay, let's explore a different theme every episode. And I think in Magic Meltdown is a lot of those little elements that became instrumental in Magic for Humans, which is, for me, like, if you say, okay, you can make let's do an episode, a magic episode, it can be about anything. It's like overwhelming,
Sure.
But okay, let's do this episode about technology and how magic and technology, join forces or compete. And now you've got parameters, and then the ideas start flowing, and you're able to kind of talk about life stuff. Let's do an episode about love. Okay. Oh, now you, by giving me like lines to paint in, I found that to be a really fruitful way to write and tap into your own stuff. Like a blank page is so intimidating.
Absolutely.
But if you write a word at the top of that page, and then okay, now I can fill in the blanks.
It's just like, it's like staring at the Google page, where it's like, man, I could learn about literally anything in the history of collected human knowledge. I can just, well, I don't know what I want to know. I don't know. It's too overwhelming. It's like our brains need some direction. I feel like they need some boundaries. They need some, almost a little bit of an opposing force to kind of make us creative to think creatively, you know, like the opposing force could be like, we don't have budget, or you don't have time, or you only have, you know, 5 minutes to do this, or this is a format. And all those things, I think, activate the sort of creative genes that then kick in and allow you to sort of, you're exactly right. It's like painting around lines.
Yeah, and I think for me, once I realized that it's not about like, okay, you're going to do an episode and you have to incorporate all the things that you know, okay, but once I switched and I was like, let's explore the things that I don't know. Like, what am I curious about? What am I confused about? What have I heard about but want to know more about? And I feel like that is more relatable to most people because few people are experts no one's an expert on everything. So by being this curious person who happens to have a bunch of some magic skills, and that's my kind of icebreaker, foot in the door, I can explore, LARPing, puppy play, recreate an experiment that I've always been fascinated about, but didn't understand why that experiment works the way it does. Let's do it and add a twist to it. Like, I feel like acknowledging what you don't know and using that as a catalyst for why you're exploring something is a relatable thing, because there's a lot of smart people out there talking about what they know, and no one needs to hear another guy pretend to know stuff. So,
well, also, like, the more you sort of talk about yourself and your own experiences, the less you're really like, I'm an expert. Like, you know, you can be an expert on yourself. Like, that's that's okay. And that's like when I used to do Chelsea Lately. I kind of got to a point where I was feeling really bad about making jokes about people that I didn't know. And I said to Whitney Cummings, like, I don't know. I feel terrible. I don't know these people. And I feel like I'm, you know, like dunking on people that I don't even. And she goes, when I feel that way, I always just make the jokes about me. And I'm like, that's great. And like, it just never occurred. Of course, I'll be the butt of the joke. And then that takes that pressure off. And then I'm not coming off, you know, like a dick to anybody, because no one can say like, you know, hey,
how
I'm
dare
offended
you
that you shit on yourself, you know?
Right.
Oh, on that
Our moms can say that.
Your mom.
That's what moms are for. You're being hard on yourself.
No, the guy that you convinced was invisible.
Yeah.
Was there any concern that he might just like take his pants down and take a shit on that? Like, I'm invisible. Like,
there was a lot of hope that he would do that. I mean, that would have been great.
I want to hear about the journey of like, and again, you know, like this is. I apologize to relate it to me, but I'm so fascinated by that because magicians and comedians are cousins, very much cousins.
Yeah.
And so I want to hear about like what your child, like what's the childhood?
And I'm a child of incest.
What's the childhood of a budding magician look like, and how are you relating to other kids? And in school, do they think it's cool that you do magic, or do they think it's dorky, or like how did you fall into it? And then like, I know you got a magic kit when you were younger, but then like, what was the pull, and how did that manifest with other kids?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I got a magic kit when I was maybe 6 or 7. After David Copperfield or Harry Blackstone Jr. big show in town, you know, and my parents could see that I loved magic. But as a kid, you know, you see Copperfield on stage, you don't know that there's tricks. You know, he's a god up there. You know, so you get a magic set, and you're kind of like, wait. It doesn't just come with a wand that I can tap. Like,
right.
There's this, and there's parts, and there's practice, and then you're kind of like, attention span overload. I can't handle it. So then I kind of ditched magic, and you know, you kind of get into a bunch of other hobbies. I came to magic again when I was like 12. Because I had broken my arms riding my bike with rollerblades on, and my doctor, as we do, and my doctor recommended learning magic, so I took up card tricks while I had these casts on because I had time, and then I got the casts off, and I kind of really dove into magic. And I think I was lucky. I didn't really get like bullied because I was like the only magician in my school, and people are always, there's like the connotation of like, I'm a little magician nerd, you know, getting bullied. But I found it to be this thing that for the first time made me special, you know, like Justin shows a trick, you know, like, and I feel like sometimes obviously bullying, people make fun of the person who does something that no one else does. Mm-hmm. That's often rooted out of jealousy, you know, like everyone else is special because they're on the team with the 20 other people, and maybe they're great at that, but there's nothing special about that. So magic was this thing that made me special, and, you know, being able to do something that fooled my parents, you know, was a big thing, because your parents are the ones who know how everything works. They teach you everything. So knowing how to do a thing that they don't know how to do is kind of like, whoa, like a little role reversal thing, which is nice. And I think you know how like so many comics I think dabbled in magic as kids, you know, and I feel like that's because when you know that there's something in you that wants to perform, like I have something to say, but I don't know what it is yet, you know, and you know, a 12 or 13-year-old, rarely will they like start writing their own comedy, you know, so the magic is often this thing that they turn to or discover that's a way to, you know, like, okay, there's a trick. I learn a trick. I practice the moves. I've got it. Now I can kind of work on the pizzazz, the presentation. And it's almost like a little bit of a crutch to like a framework to figure out how to behave in front of people. And you kind of, as a kid magician, obviously, I was drawn immediately to people like Harry Anderson. You know, I loved him from Night Court, the greatest sitcom ever. And, you know, his style of kind of just this nonchalant trickster, but there were jokes and I kind of...
The grifter,
exactly. Harry the Hat on Cheers, you know. And so I kind of liked incorporating comedy. But as a kid, you know, you kind of do the jokes you read out of the books, and they're you don't even get what the jokes are, but they work, you know, like those, just the hacky lines. But I just loved getting laughs, and I loved having people be like, how the hell did you do that? You know, it kind of feels really great. And then I think I was drawn to the entrepreneurial aspect because then you start gigging as a kid and getting my business cards made up. That's what my dad especially they're always very supportive of magic. My dad loved the magic, but he really encouraged, you know, the business side of it. Okay, let's book some gigs. People will pay you $50 to do a show at their kid's birthday party. Let's do it.
How old are you at this point?
14, 15.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Because you've only been doing magic a couple I'm so fucking jealous of kids because they just, you know, when your brain is still forming, boy, that's the time to get in and learn shit because it just gets into your DNA. Oh, yeah. You learn so fast.
Like any hard magic sleight of hand that I learned is something I learned in high school. Like rarely is there's... I find it so hard. And maybe it's just because we don't have the time that we used to have. You know, you come home from school, have 4 hours to work on a thing.
I also think you just don't have the brain plasticity.
I think so, yeah. Like trying to learn, I've always wanted to learn guitar, and I hate that I didn't try to learn when I was a teenager, you know, because I would have it for the rest of my life. Like learning to type. Like, I'm so glad I learned to type in high school because now I can just do it. I couldn't imagine like learning that right now. So, so I kind of jumped around genres in magic. I was obsessed with Lance Burton, so I did an act in a tuxedo with 12 doves.
Where are you getting doves as a teenager?
You find that my parents loved it. They were very like, you know, they would, as long as I would keep getting good grades and I wasn't like a delinquent, they were kind of helping encourage these things. And my dad was never like handouts. It was always like, let's take the money that you made doing, you know, Tommy's bat mitzvah, let's say. Sure. Tommy's bar mitzvah of the weekend, and let's, you know, use that to, you know, improve the act, invest in yourself kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was some good tutelage along the way. And then, like, they would chauffeur me from gig to gig on the weekends and encourage me. I saved up money and bought my own car when I turned 16. And so it was kind of like simultaneously pursuing magic as an art form, as a performer, and then also like, how could this maybe be a career path, you know, which was really nice. And then, and went to college, went to Emerson College in Boston, kind of started up a little kids' birthday party biz on the weekends. And then luckily that's where I met, you know, some of my closest friends who happen to be comedians. Like Dan Levy and I were roommates in college, and he had a similar path because he was a young kid comedian. Like he would compete in these young, you know, teenage comedy contests around New England. And so we were kind of similar in that we'd been doing this thing as freshmen in college already for like 6-7 years, and kind of, you know, like let's inspire one another. So he kind of really loved hearing about how to turn this craft into a business. And for me, I learned just about the comedy world. Like, you got to write your own jokes. You gotta figure out who you are. You can't do that Harry Anderson line, you know, because people can look up Harry. You're setting yourself up for just disaster. And also, like, most magicians are conditioned to create and craft your act, and you have that act, and it's an hour, and you do that for the rest of your life. And I think, and that works great for a lot of performers, maybe who, you know, maybe are doing cruise ships or touring clubs and have a new crowd every night. Yeah, exactly. So, you know, as a comic, it's like, you know, I would watch him write the stuff about things that happened last week, and now it's in his act, and I see it honing out over a few shows, and now it's killing, and I was like, I was there when that happened, and that became like like a magic trick, like that an original magic trick is like this little piece of currency that you created out of nothing. You know, if it's this is mine, just like a joke, right? You write a joke, and now it hits, and it's like, wow, I have like it's like a jewel in your hand, you know, that is yours, that you made, and it's a beautiful thing. And I think that was important just to go around to comedy clubs with him, do open mics, and figure out how to just go up and try to be legitimately funny as I was magic. And that, I think, was what sparked the beginning of that search for what my voice is. And then the college, you know, doing NACA, touring those colleges.
Boy, those NACAs were so crazy. Mike Furman and I did them as Hard and Firm, and we, you know, the first year we got in. Just for anyone listening, NACA's this massive, and there are regional ones, but there's a big national one every year, and it's all of the bookers, like all the entertainment bookers from all the colleges come, and they're all like these student-run organizations, and they're given budgets every year, and they have to spend all their entertainment budget, because if they don't, then generally, like, the money gets taken away.
Right.
Like,
or they give them less money next year.
Or they give them less money next year. Oh, you didn't need, you know, whatever it was, $100,000 entertainment. And they book their entertainment for the year through NACA. And so you have to send in a tape, and you know, so sort of like an audition process, and you get to perform. And we found that performing at NACA was really the only way to do, because it's also a convention, so you can go have a booth there. But they're college kids, so if they haven't just seen you perform, it's unlikely, unless you're really famous, that they're going to come over and go, I want to book you,
right.
You know? So it was such an interesting, like, what was your experience with it? Did you enjoy that process? Was it grueling?
I mean, it was grueling. I loved it, though. Like, I remember just when I started, like, flying to shows, it just felt like such real show business, you know? Like, I have a plane ticket, I'm renting a car, I've got expenses.
Yeah, but were you performing? We'd show up and there'd be, like, 8 people there. They'd be like, "Oh yeah, we forgot to promote it, but you know, like." And the thing is, because they paid for you, you still do the show.
Yeah.
And you know, I'm so glad Mike was there, because he was my best friend, and it was so fun to go through that with him. But what do you do if you're just like basically performing for like 6 people?
I think what I lucked out at is because, like, also in those trade show situations where you're kind of at the booth, I can kind of do a little snippet of what I would do on stage. So I can do a close-up trick, you know? Like, you guys can't do, like, let's do the conversation version of our act and try to dazzle you with our wit here. You know, it's kind of like you got to sing a show.
Dinosaurs.
Exactly. We're not going to sing a song for 2 people right here, but I can kind of do a trick for them, and they could be like, oh, wow, yeah, okay. So, but when I loved the bad gigs, like the nooners especially, where you show up and they don't know, you know, they're eating lunch and you're setting up at the cafeteria doing a sound check, and they didn't know there was going to be a show.
Studying, it's like exam week.
Yeah, and even still today, I love those gigs where everything is set up for failure. You know, you would think that this is not going to go well, like where my back is against the wall, and I find that that's when I have to like make it big, come up with a way, lure people in, you know, like acknowledge how crappy this is, and that there's nobody here.
Training too.
Yeah, I just love that. Like, it's still, you know, there are gigs still where it's just like, oh god, this is bad, and as opposed to like fighting it or pretending just to go through the motions like it's not bad, and then, you know, the audience is like, boy, he's not acknowledging how the fact that there's nobody here or whatever, or that the sound is bad. Or I find like embracing those flaws and making it into a new thing, like those, I'll have people come up to me after shows now and they'll say like, I was at that college in, you know, 2004 when the power went out, and it was so weird and it was so funny. Like those tend to be the things that people remember and that I remember. Yeah.
But if a trick goes sideways or something malfunctions or something doesn't work, is that worse than being a comedian with a joke that bombs?
Yeah, I think it's worse. I mean, it's like, it's your dick flopping out of your pants midway, and you can't unsee that. You know, like, I feel like with magic, the audience needs to, like, there's the greatest fear of an audience member, even if they're kind of, you know, sadistic, like, is that something's going to mess up. Like, I don't want, I want the trick to work.
It's a tightrope walk. It's like this person could fall, but we really don't want to see them
And I'm sure
fall.
you've seen like you've been in the castle and you see somebody who you're like, oh, this is their first time working the castle, and you can tell they're nervous, and you're like, oh, I really want this to work out for me.
Right.
And if it doesn't, like when a trick doesn't work, it's the lights turning on and the veneer being pulled off. And if you're a very serious performer and a trick doesn't work, it really stands out. If you're a comedic performer, like Amazing Jonathan, half the tricks are not supposed to work, and that's what's funny. But a joke not working, acknowledging it, moving on to the next. It's kind of like an ebb and flow. With magic, it's harder to come back.
He was. I always gravitated to the comedy magicians too when I was growing up. Harry, because in the '80s they had all these stand-up specials on television all the time, like all these Evening at the Improv. They have a bunch of comedians, and so those guys, they were the magic guys who would do those. Even to a degree, Joel Hodgson, who wasn't a magician technically, but he would make these gadgets that seemed magical. But the Amazing Jonathan, it's just his whole, like, you look like the person who killed my parents. And then he'd get a laugh. I'm just kidding, I killed them. It was just like that unhinged sort of psychotic character that he did. I saw him at Brookledge like 2 years ago, and he fucking killed. Like, still destroying. So it is... I understand what you mean. Like, comedy is the sort of excuse for... It's a safety net in a way because it allows you to pivot more than if you were not a comedian. It's just like, well, that didn't go well.
Yeah, it is kind of like if someone's a juggler, even if they're a funny juggler, when they drop something, it probably wasn't supposed to happen, but some jugglers have amazing comebacks when things drop. And I feel like in magic, it's kind of the same, just to, roll with those punches. But I think that doing the Nakas is when I started to, feel like I'm kind of equal. I'm telling stories and jokes between tricks, and I feel like I'm kind of discovering myself as a comedian and as a magician. And that's when I started to really gravitate towards the tricks or pieces, whatever, them being about something, them having context and premise, not that I'm trying to prove a point, but like you were saying about Jon Stewart, what is this about? It's like magic, just magic for magic's sake is great and it's amazing, but I feel like it's a missed opportunity because they're walking away, you have a chance to like blow their mind and make them laugh, but then make them think and have them really, it resonates with people more because it's tied to this, like to the emotion of wonder, to this emotion of awe, so why not, make it about something, anything, like a lot of, the first thing when you're coming up as a kid magician, there's a whole genre in magic, there's the kid show performing market, but then there's gospel magic. So they're magicians who
like
specifically
Jesus,
perform
was
in
Jesus
churches.
gospel
magic. Well, that's controversial. Where did he buy his tricks? They were amazing tricks. But that's where you're like, oh wow. So there's like the coloring book trick that clowns might do or a magician might do, but then there's like the Jesus coloring book trick, and it's like the same trick, but wow, he is like making a very big statement, a point about, the Lord, and, does this at church. And I was like, wow, that's a way to take a magic trick that is just an ordinary trick and make it about something much bigger. And not that I wanted to take a gospel magic route, but it's a good way to see how magic can be this metaphor, to tell a story. And I always thought gospel magic was such an ironic thing because, magic, some devout Christians are like, they don't want anything to do with my shows. Oh, I don't want to be a part of that black magic. Or they're like, they think if you're really good, you're a demon.
Even though it's weirdly more science and physics and math than it is, like, it's not actually mystical.
Yes. But if they can't explain how,
then it's in league with the devil. You definitely would have been burned at the stake.
Yes.
Hundreds of years ago. But I was talking to Penn Jillette about, like, yeah, but aren't there only a finite number of gags that magicians? And he's like, yeah, but the art is in the presentation. And how do you? He goes, it's the same thing with comedy. I mean, there's only a handful of types of jokes, and it is personalizing it and making the presentations different, and I think stand-up works similarly with magic in the sense that, people can hear the same song over and over, but a joke is like a magic trick, and once you have the reveal, generally, with a few exceptions, like, people don't want to see the same joke again because it's like, I've already seen that.
Right.
I've already seen the reveal. I've already seen the trick.
Right.
So, it's the coming up with the creative ways to repurpose and re-express. Like, what's that challenge like?
Jeselnik jokes are kind of like magic tricks.
Yes, there's a reveal.
Yeah, there's a reveal, and you just often didn't see it coming.
Right.
But I can never listen to that joke the same way again because I know it's
You know what the reveal
I can
is.
enjoy it, but man, like, because they're just so beautifully crafted, like, ta-das, there's a finite number of like magic concepts and methods and stuff. I mean, sometimes something new and diabolical or something that feels new will come along, I've got an amazing team that I make the show with for like 2-3 months. It's me with some great comedy writers who don't know anything about magic so that they're not constrained. And we come up with like the episode blueprints. We want to talk about this and maybe there's a segment about this, but they're not constrained they'll pitch anything, ridiculous things that might not be possible to do, but it's better than having the show, at least the germination of ideas, come from magicians, because I find that I'm often self-censoring because I'm like, hey, you can't do that. No, that won't work, and I'm kind of diminishing the potential concept, So once we've got the blueprint of these episodes, I've got a team of like just magic geniuses who many of them I've known for like 20 years that I came up with, and we just kind of figure out how to do it. And often my greatest joy is taking like an old trick, like an old method. For example, like when we made the dude believe he was invisible, I was like, we need to have magic in here somewhere. So in order to convince a guy that he's about to be turned invisible, he needs to see us make a guy quote unquote invisible. So there's an old trick called the decolta chair, which has been around for hundreds of years, which is, a person sitting in a chair, you drape a cloth over them, you whisk the cloth away, and they're gone. Mm-hmm. And there's different variations of this, but it was invented by this guy, decolta, and it's like just proven the test of time. So how can we do that not on a stage, not with a big wooden crazy chair, but just do it with a picnic chair? And so it's the vanishing person trick, an oldie but a goodie, in order to be repurposed to be evidence that this person's now invisible. So I love the old stuff being dressed up as new. So like as Penn was saying, it's all about the context, and I feel like that if you can't come up with a trick that's never been done, I think it's just as amazing and original to come up with a new way to do a trick that's really, really old and do it in a way that makes it feel new. I feel like in comedy, there's often, I can't think of an example, but when somebody will tell a joke that just feels so obvious, like that's been there this whole time, but it's genius. How did I miss that?
How did we miss it?
It's so simple.
I do believe that comedy, I always think of comedy as like the game Boggle, where Boggle, where it's the grid with the letters and you shake it up and then it's like everyone has a timer and you start writing words and you are positive you have written down every fucking word in that thing, and you start going through your list at the end after the timer goes up and someone says a word and you're like, oh god damn it, was how did I miss cart? It was right there, and like, that to me is like, that's with those types of jokes.
Yeah, and like Stephen Wright and Hedberg jokes that are just so simple and the words are so economized, and it then just becomes brilliant. It's to me that's just the best.
But I also have this idea that it, like comedy, I don't think was ever really intended to be, obviously, because when comedy started, there was no television media and stuff. I think it's a very difficult thing to shoot because I do feel that it is there's like a communal experience with comedy that is meant to kind of be intimate, and you create this flash mob of an audience and you all have this unique experience together. And so when you shoot that, you are automatically removing.
You're adding water to it.
You're adding water to it. You're diluting it because the people at home, whereas in a live show, like people can really have an experience. But, when you're watching it on television, it really more stands by the jokes themselves rather than the experience of being there, because you can't feel that because you're not there. With magic, I feel like that's true, but then there's the layer on top of that of people going, well, I'm watching this on video, so how do I know that so how do you kind of game that system so that it still feels like, oh, this really was something that they did in the moment and not, trick photography or whatever.
I feel like in comedy, when you watch a special, and if you're not a comedian, not a performer, you're just kind of a fan, I feel like the audience their laugh is what maybe lets you know, that's the end of the joke. That really was funny. Like without the laughs, I feel like
it's the musings of a crazy person.
Exactly. So you often judge how funny you thought it was based on, oh, that was a huge laugh. That was really funny. You know,
Right.
like, and with magic, it's kind of like a mathematical equation. It's like joke plus audience reaction equals you as the home viewer. Like, yeah, okay, it computes. That was funny. With magic, it's the same. So you need to see a great trick, but you need to see an equally great, amazed reaction from somebody right there.
Yeah.
And you need to use all your BS detectors to know that, oh, that's a real person.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a fake reaction. Wow. That really, I believe them that they're amazed. So therefore I am amazed too, because it's like I was there.
It's really interesting. I never thought of it that way, but in a way, it's almost like a third-person reaction video that you're watching.
Yeah.
It's like they are... Oh, that's so... I never thought of it that way. They are activating your trick because they ultimately are kind of the voice of the viewer or the person who's watching on the internet or the video or you know, on Netflix or whatever. And so you're also like they're part of the show too. Like it's always fun to be in a magic, like, and in your shows in particular, you know, like where you know, like the one trick you do where you like unravel all the numbers,
Yeah.
you know, and it always makes the show more entertaining when people in the audience are like, shut the fuck up. You know, there's always a shut the fuck upper in the audience.
Yeah.
Or like, no, he fucking, God, like
Yeah.
people get angry.
And they know it's coming.
Because
They're like,
you've tricked
Yeah.
them. And you tell them you're going to lie to them. Like, I'm going to trick you.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to, and still, like that experience is part of the show too.
So what's frustrating, which means it's frustrating when we, you know, we're out shooting something and, oh man, that trick, it looks so good. And you do want to avoid cutting. So you're kind of, you know, you're married to a performance and a person, you know, who's watching it. So the trick looked great, but man, that person just didn't freak out, or maybe they're self-conscious because there's cameras. So therefore the trick's amazement doesn't equal their reaction. So you as a viewer, like there's a disconnect. It's like, why? Okay. Maybe the trick was, maybe there's something fake happening here, or
Right.
Why would that person not freak out? People often get upset when someone doesn't give what they think they should give as a reaction, you know, like that and me watching in the edit bay is we're kind of like, okay, we've got two performances of this trick, which we use. Like sometimes I'll have to use the lesser great trick in order to get the better reaction because
Right.
I'd rather take that than a great trick and just hating this person who didn't really give me what I deserved there, you know?
Well, it's hard too because if you're doing your job perfectly, it's seamless. And so I think it's hard for people, when people go to watch a magic show, you know, I think they want to be dazzled and entertained and surprised. But rarely do I think the average person goes to a magic show and thinks how much work went into it, how much like behind the scenes planning and math and whatever, and how much hours and hours of you like doing finger exercises and, you know, like figuring out how, you don't ever think about, because in its perfect form, that all vanishes.
Right.
And it's just a thing. And so, you know, if someone doesn't react, then in a way it's almost like they're also kind of not acknowledging like this guy worked really hard on that. But
Yeah.
you kind of don't want them to do that because they shouldn't see all the work that went
It's
into
like
it.
like Jerry Seinfeld's comedian documentary was so great to see, because you kind of just want to imagine that Seinfeld just goes on stage every night and just talks
And kills.
It's gold, and then you realize like, wow, no, he's tinkering with words and being frustrated each night trying to figure out the right place for those words. And the same goes for magic. You know, you want to think that I just, you know, leave the house with some cameras and all of a sudden, you know, people are invisible or whatever.
Yeah.
Like stuff happens, but there is a lot of the preparation and planning that goes into it to make it look like there's no preparation and planning.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so do you, when you're sort of planning the tricks and stuff, how are you balancing out, do you ever have the pull to make them more presentational? Do you have to keep checking back in with yourself and being like, okay, I just have to like relax. I have to like just be me. Like, how are you striking that balance?
I think I try to obviously get the mechanics down so that what I'm doing, the trick, you know, whatever is involved, it feels natural. I try to have in my head a Rolodex of potential funny things to say or ways to deal with how somebody might react, but I can't get too married to those, because if I'm like, I'm going to wedge this joke in there, but it wasn't really called for, it kind of, you know, all right, now it's performance, you know, now it's presentational. And I often, like in season 1, there were a couple things that were a little more presentational, like this gender reveal party thing, and those just weren't things that resonated with people, that people talked about. The stuff that really resonates, I find, is the stuff that is very simple, pure, and where you actually feel like you're using magic as a way to observe the human reaction, to observe human behavior. And the kids stuff, especially, because kids are, like, they forget about that there's cameras there much quicker. They are very uncensored and very
and they just want the marshmallow.
They just want that marshmallow. So as a viewer, like, that kind of stuff is what resonates the most. And now I've learned to kind of lean towards those things, because I think people want to be reminded what joy looks like, what amazement looks like. They want to see someone's brain break, because they're watching because they're on my team, and they want to see what I can, elicit from people. I want to see what's Justin going to do to freak someone out today and make their day, and they want to be a part of that. And I feel like those are the things that, I think that we need right now in our world. I feel like the crazier shit is in our daily lives and everyone's personal struggles and the stuff in the news, like escapism, just a little bit of that wholesome escapism. Not that I ever wanted to make a wholesome show.
No, but also hope
happened.
And belief in wonder and magic, and the fact that it's still out there and it's not just all bad news.
Exactly.
Even though there's a lot of bad news, it still is like the ability to create wonder and amazement and stuff. But you are also, I think you're the sort of ultimate. Does the trick have a name? Is there like an industry term for like the trick, the reveal? Does it have a name? Like in terms of when the magic part happens, or when it's sort of like that.
You think it's going one way.
Like in wrestling, the kayfabe is sort of like the agreement with the audience that it's not, that it's a performance. Is there a part of the reveal? Is there like an inside word for the reveal? And then the reveal happens. Is there like, and then this is the
we
MacGuffin.
call it the reveal.
The reveal.
Sometimes, yeah.
So I think
or the mystery. Like oftentimes,
the misdirect.
Like I do a bit of my show where I've got a cardboard box. Hey, random person, who's your first kiss? Sarah B. I open the box, inside a sheet of paper that says Sarah B. Do you think that's the trick? And then I'm like, come on, guys. I don't know this person. I don't have you want to know how it works? And I lift up the box, and you see a printer's there. Okay, so now you're like, oh, okay. Okay. I thought there was going to be a printer there.
Right.
There was a printer there. And then I talk about how it sucks to know how magic works. Blah blah blah. I'll make it magic again. I lift up the printer. I crush it. It's a ball of paper. So that is kind of a formula that I like to use a lot. And I can't believe I get away with it as much as I do, because I feel like you start maybe expecting it, where you think you know how the trick works. I was right.
But that's like the Jeselnik.
No,
that's like the Jeselnik joke. Like, but you go see him because of that.
Yes,
because you know that he's the best at it.
Right.
And so
you love getting fooled by that thing again. It kind of feels good. He got me again. I love it.
And it's probably fun for you guys who do that to come up with creative and innovative ways to do that. But I think you, as a person, are the ultimate trick, the ultimate misdirect, because you're not presentational in that way. No one expects you. It's like if you came up to someone on the street and you had a fucking cape and like a weird mustache or like a top hat or a lot of guy liner or whatever it was, people would be like, they'd be expecting something.
Right.
But the fact that you're just like, hey, I'm Justin, and then as it unfolds, you do this insane thing that it, by all physical account, like every bit of aesthetic data that I have about you does not register as like, this guy's a world-class magician.
Right.
You're just a dude. So you're like the ultimate misdirect, just you. Because I don't think anyone, if they don't know who you are, the last thing they're going to expect is this dude's just going to walk up, and then 2 seconds later walk up behind them dressed as a cop. You know what I mean? Like it's an unbelievable, like, that presentation, I think, is so important.
The art of disarmament.
Yes,
I guess,
because they're totally like, their defenses don't have a chance to go up and like, oh, this guy better be good. He's clearly a magician, because they don't even know what you're about to do, I would imagine.
It's funny. I feel like that, the skill of being able to, disarm a situation or kind of put people at ease or lower their expectations maybe comes out of, like as a teenager in high school or in college, like just your own insecurity, like, I don't know if this is going to work, so let me lower the expectations. Like I think it maybe came out of insecurity as a defense mechanism and then becomes this little cool secret weapon,
Yeah.
But then also, as soon as I, over the years realized that authenticity is the most, magnetic thing you can do, and as close as you can be to who you truly are and telling your own story. And like, no one can say you're wrong if you're telling your story. Like you are being real. And I feel like, people sense that, and by hopefully not, by staying away from, costume or anything to kind of build up the performance, you can kind of have it be based on your own merit, and the words you say and the tricks that you do. And, I love that. I feel like what I learned from doing the show is that, humans, we're all more alike than we are different, and so much in comedy, like a lot of it, we were talking about, with Whitney Cummings giving this advice about making fun of people you don't know, like so much comedy is encouraged to come out of other people's expense, They're wrong, they're dumb, they're stupid, ha ha ha, we're right.
Us and them, yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like in the show I've realized, in doing magic, and the common denominator is just that we all kind of want the same thing. We want joy and love, and so staying away from the divisive things and letting magic be this escapism that I think that it is well suited to, is what I enjoy doing. And I'm glad that those little weird disarming things or whatever kind of are remnants from my insecure upbringing help in that.
Well,
yeah.
and because I feel like we love that feeling of surprise. And the older we get, the harder they are to come by, which is part of the reason why I think spoilers are such a capital crime, because when something is spoiled, people sort of feel like they've been robbed of that feeling, that sort of drug, that I don't know if it's adrenaline, whatever the rush is of chemicals in your brain, where you're like, blah, that you have a lot when you're a kid because everything's new to you, which is sort of like why. These movies I watched when I was a kid are the best movies that I've ever seen, or the first cast that I saw of SNL is the best cast. And it's like, because you were younger and you were more amenable to being surprised by things. And as we get older, they're harder and harder and harder to come by. And magic still kind of gives people that little bit of that sort of like kid chemical drug that shoots in your brain, because you're like, whoa, we don't get to feel a lot of surprises. And usually when we're an adult and we're surprised by something, most of the time it's bad news as opposed to like
push alerts on our phone.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like we don't tend to, like, life doesn't give like grown ass people a ton of great surprises,
right.
So I do think from that standpoint it's valuable to people, because it does kind of give them a little bit of that drug. And
then they love to then take that thing and share it with the people who they know would love this.
Yeah.
Oh, you gotta see this. I want to watch you watch this,
Yeah.
And I think, like the number bit I used to do in my show, Jonah and Kumail, when I would do the meltdown, would always peek around, and they would love to watch the audience about to, have their brains melt.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice that even though it's, quote unquote, spoiled for them and they know where it's going, it's very fun for them to anxiously watch some people see it for the first time.
Yeah, it's part of the experience.
Yeah, it's fun.
And so you've had a ton of stuff go like mega viral, like your wedding video.
Oh yeah.
And so what does that mean for, because I think as we're sort of, well into the age of social media now and well into understanding the viral phenomenon, it was sort of like in the early days of Twitter, for whatever reason, Twitter put me and a handful of friends of mine on their like suggested user list. And so in the earliest days, people like me and Will Wheaton and Felicia Day and, all had a shit ton of followers before a lot of people did, because we were being recommended by Twitter. And I think at first, like, in the early days, all of a sudden I had like 50 or 100,000 followers on Twitter, which was not common.
Right.
And I thought, all my shows are going to sell out now because it's 100,000 people even doing the math. If 1% of them buy, and then you realize like, it doesn't translate the same. It doesn't mean everything, to have a viral video doesn't necessarily mean that you can play stadiums, or it doesn't necessarily mean. And so what is this sort of, for you as the business side of the performer, what does that mean? And is it helpful? Is it whatever? Is it not helpful? I mean, it's better to have it than not, but what does it actually mean to you? And how do you use it now that we're becoming more savvy about how this stuff works?
Yeah, I think they're just, like it's certainly not like a monetary thing. I don't think I've ever made any, it's not been a monetary goal
No internet
to have
dollars?
a video. No, I mean, like my wedding video, I used like, music that wasn't mine, so you don't make any money off that, and anything that went viral from Netflix, you kind of, to me, it's just these little free billboards that get to go up around town. Town being the world, where hopefully they will then watch Magic for Humans, or when they see that I'm coming to their town, maybe perk up and oh yeah, it's the guy from the thing, or at least maybe let them be a part of whatever my social media, be an Instagram follower, and then kind of be enlisted into kind of hopeful nurturing their fandom for the show. And I mean, obviously, selling tickets on the road is a very hard thing to do, but It's very, very rewarding, because for me, that's the one aspect of my career that hopefully in the long run I will have control over. Being able to listen. If Netflix doesn't want to do any more thing, and no one wants to put me on their whatevers, hopefully I will have the people who I can go out to their town and do the shows, that's kind of that old school showbiz thing that I hope I can always nurture. So ideally that's what those things do and kind of help.
I agree. That's what
do.
everything I've always done is like, I hope it brings more people to shows. But I think of all the things, the greatest appreciation that I have is that like people, even if online they're like, oh, I really like your work or whatever. Nothing is more truthful than someone putting on pants, getting in their car, driving, parking, going in, waiting in line, paying a decent amount of money for, tickets and food or whatever, giving you like their whole night. Maybe they had to get a babysitter, and coming and seeing one of your shows. Like, there's no greater honor than someone giving you their time and money to give you their attention. And I will, I go out and meet people, anyone who wants to take a picture. I'm like, I'll sign a pop toy, or I'll sign someone else's. I'll sign whatever you have. And I so greatly enjoy meeting people face to face and being able to shake their hands, or, they go, can I have a hug? Sure. Because it really, like, there's no truer thing than that relationship where someone will actually devote time and, and their hard-earned money to come see you, like that is such an amazing experience.
Yeah, and I feel like, when I was doing like NACAs in colleges, they're not paying tickets,
Right.
I'm at their school for free. So having people who go through all that trouble, and I feel like, I don't know if you agree, you can watch the show and, I love what I've created with the Netflix show. So I feel like you're getting a real dose of me, but man, nothing, if them seeing the show live, like someone coming and watching, Chris Hardwick perform, not through a screen, no extra water added. Like, it is just like, that's what I think it's all about. That's why I wanted to be a performer, is to perform, have this, this exact show will never happen again, where, every show you do with people on the road, it's like that we're creating just a very, very special night. And for them, it was a choice, a decision to spend hard-earned money. Tickets aren't cheap. Ticketmaster fees are ridiculous. Like the money people have to pay to come out to see you, it's a thing that you have to plan out. And it's
the convenience fee, because it's so convenient.
To take your money.
Yeah, exactly.
It's convenient for them.
Yeah. $20 to click this button? Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So convenient.
I love doing the shows. I love doing the meet and greet. And oftentimes the meet and greet will go 2 times as long as the show was.
Sure.
And it just, because I just know, like, if you have this connection with people, they will come to see you when you're back in town. And you kind of have it's a relationship. It's a very wholesome relationship where it's like, hey, I like what you do. I want to hear the words you have to say and see your new magic. So let's do this every 2 years.
Yeah, but whereas comedians, though, I think maybe 5% of people will say, tell me a joke. But as a magician, I would imagine in person, people kind of want to like puppeteer you a little bit and be like, do a trick, like do a thing. When you find out someone's a magician, you immediately want them to just do a thing.
Yeah.
Do you have stuff at all times? Like, do magicians, like, do you just have something in your pocket where, like, okay, if 10 people are going to ask me today, so I should just be prepared?
I used to always have something. Like when I was in high school, college, and afterward, just because I think I was really, every day was a chance to prove myself and to maybe get a gig or have the word spread. And now I feel like, I try my best to politely come see a show, or you just saw me do 90 minutes, so I'm about to do a trick in the middle of the green line, or watch this thing. Like I feel like I like. Unless, of course, it's like, okay, Justin, we've got Will Ferrell here, and he wants to see a trick. Okay,
right.
I love Will Ferrell. Or Steve Martin wants to see a trick. Okay, oh boy.
And he knows magic.
And he knows magic. But I kind of try to defer those impromptu situations to have them come see me in I think, the setting that would showcase it best.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at now.
Reminded me, hey, you don't have to talk about this, and I'll totally cut this out if you want, but I know you performed for Obama when he was president.
Yeah.
I feel like you said he heckled a lot during the show, but you can't say anything because he's the fucking president at the
But
time.
it was, I know, no, you can't kick him out of the White House.
You can't. Hey, this guy's.
Hey, Secret Service, listen,
Come on,
this guy's drunk.
Guy, yeah. But what was it? So like,
But it was positive heckling. It was like, how did he do that? Kids, like, what's going on? This guy's a wizard. I don't do a good Obama, but this is what he was saying. Like he was like, it was razzing. I think he was trying to just kind of be a little hype man of the crowd, because sometimes, a couple of magic moments in the show are like, Pete Holmes' bit. There's no natural reaction to magic, there's no sound you make. So it often is mistaken for, boy, he's not doing well.
Right.
But actually people are just like their jaws on the floor. And I think Obama is a natural. He's a great performer. He's got this, he's got a tempo. He can, he's a speaker. He knows, okay, there's too much of a lull here. We got to get a little reaction call and response. So that was really nice. Trying to hype the room a little bit.
Well, that's funny because Pete Holmes told the story, I think, on Conan, maybe? He told the story somewhere where he was doing a show, I think, in Boston, and there were these two girls in the front that would not stop talking during the whole show, and he, got into it with them a little bit, and was just like, can they please shut the fuck up, or whatever it was, and one of them turned out to be Obama's daughter. And so he was just like, oh, shit. And so I texted him, I was like, Obama talked all through Justin's show, so maybe it's just a thing. Maybe she came out honestly. But I don't know, but are there people that you were like, are there other people that you were surprised that you got to perform for? Or do you get extra nervous if there's, certain people in the room? With comedians, it's always other comedians.
Right.
Is it the same thing? Is it magicians and other magicians? Or is it like, the Will Ferrells and the Steve Martins of the world and the Obamas of the world? Or is it like, what's your, oh shit?
If it's someone who I have a great respect for what they do, whether they're a performer or not, there are extra nerves that come in. But I love if they're about to see me, when they're going to see me in the right context. It would not feel good if I meet Steve Martin and someone's like, Justin, do a trick. And it's kind of like, he doesn't really want to see a trick. He's in the parking lot walking to his car. And it's just like, no. Let's
go, I'll disappear.
I prefer that no trick happens now, and that maybe chance will put him in the audience one day. Who knows? But I would prefer that than kind of it being shoved upon someone.
Right.
But those are good. Those are good nerves. I love when someone I respect is seeing me do what I do in my setting, and then we can kind of have a conversation about it, because I've spent years watching them do what they do in their perfect setting. And I've been a huge Weird Al fan since I was a little kid, and I think I met him for the first time at the Nerdist Channel launch party.
Yeah, 2012.
And I don't think I did a trick for him, and he didn't know who I was, but we ended up crossing paths several times later, and it kind of became like a casual.
It's not like you're like, hey, get your accordion.
Exactly. Yeah. So I always found patience to be better than impulsiveness with shoving, trying to impress the people who you love with your thing, because, you can read when someone, I really want to see what you do, show me what you do, versus, okay, yeah, you can, sure.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, look at that. Oh, how about that? Yeah, okay, well, I gotta go. But just give people who are listening a sense of, because obviously your show is a very specific thing. It's a very specific animal. And your live show isn't, and I've seen your live show many times, but it's not, you're obviously not going up to people on the street in your live show. So what elements, are you taking from Magic for Humans and bringing onto the stage? And so what do people expect when they see your show?
Yeah, well, it's interesting, because I feel like, because like as a performer, I kind of have taken the comedian's mindset of pack and small. Don't need to check a bag. There's so many times early in my career where I would show up at a gig and there'll be other, like legit comedians I respect, and I would just hate myself that I have to make 2 trips to the car and bring my crap in, and I feel like, oh God, just the respect is going away. And I'm that guy. I'm not, the guy who needs his props to do his act. So I kind of spent years trying to need less and less and less, and have it be more about what I have to do and say, but still be able to, play.
Whose top hat is this?
Big room. Exactly,
musicians.
Play a big room, and so the things that I do in my live show, I think, oftentimes I will take I will take ideas like the Making the Dudes Invisible was something I was doing in my live show for a couple years. And it was, it was like a 30-minute bit, and the crowd loved that. I would send these 2 dudes to the lobby, and I would kind of loop everybody in on what we're going to do. And they loved being in on a prank. And so I was like, how do I adapt that to the TV show, but, make it better, but put it in the real world, and obviously make it 5 minutes long. That was fun. I feel like people, because the Netflix show is very much authentic and really me. When they come to see me live, which is also the same dude, really me. Even though I'm not doing kind of close up magic in the street, I'm doing stuff on stage presentational because it's the same. It's the same guy. It's got that same secret sauce. I feel like there's a joy and a surprise. I feel like a lot of people are just seeing magic in person, and if you're a fan of the show, you come see it live. It's a relief to be like, oh wow, it really does feel like this in person. Like, wow, we really are amazed.
Oh,
man,
as good as your
TV's
show
not
is,
a lie.
as amazing as your show is, and Lydia and I love it. Your live show is like, it just adds a whole other level, because you're seeing it happen. You're just seeing it happen in real time. I mean, it's legitimately. And there's an ease to it, and it's fun and it's funny, and the tricks are fucking great. So I really hope that people, even if they're kind of fans of your show, they should go see your live show, because it just is it's just a whole other, like, you will definitely leave that show like, holy shit, how the fuck how was that, and by the way, Alex Murray has said to me before, like, oh, I know how this one trick is done. I go, I don't want to know. Like, I still love the wonder of it, and I don't want that taken away.
Well, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Because my tour right now, it's called the Magic in Real Life Tour, because I feel like it just needs to be acknowledged that there is a difference between kind of, how great something looks on TV. You got to experience it in real life. And I feel like also with comedy, you're in a room, if you're in an audience, and just everyone is just dying. You kind of look to the left and you're right, and you're all sharing this experience. You're thinking this is as funny as I do. Yes, wow, we're one. And with magic, it's the same thing, where you're kind of like, you're in the audience. And I always relate back to just that meltdown, because it was such like a little hot box, of energy. And when you see somebody amazed, and there's often this look to the left and the right, like, you're seeing what I'm seeing. You're seeing what I'm seeing. Mm-hmm. Okay, I can let it all out. And it's like a communal. I don't know. There's just nothing better than in person, comedy, magic. I'm sure, sex is better in person as well. All the things, all these things.
Sex for humans is better in person.
Yes.
It just is better in person.
It's better.
But it is, I think it's such a good representation of your vibe. But do you like close-up Like, is there a specific type of It's not like there's close-up comedy, but magic has a couple of different, very specific presentational ways. But, like, if I'm a non-magician member of the Magic Castle, and so I've, obviously been many times over the years. And just the way it's divided up for people who don't know is that there's a close-up gallery, and there's a parlor of prestidigitation, and then there's like the theater, or is the parlor? No, the parlor is the medium-sized
Parlor's
room.
middle, right?
Yeah, and so there's a small room, a medium-sized close-up magic, a medium-sized room for medium-sized stuff, and then a theater, for like really presentational stuff. But if you walk through all the nooks and crannies, there are just random magicians who are, sitting at tables, and if you walk up to one, they'll just start doing tricks.
It's even closer than
the bartender will do tricks too.
Exactly.
And so, you see how many different presentation, like ways just to experience magic. There's not a lot of different ways to experience stand-up. It's
Right.
other than the size of the room. There's smaller rooms and there's bigger rooms, but ultimately it's stand-up.
Somebody talking.
But
Yeah.
magic has, and each one of those different platforms has its own specific style. So do you prefer one or the other, or just like a mashup of everything?
Well, over the years, I kind of dabbled in everything. Obviously, as a kid, when you don't have money to pay for anything that could be seen by more than 50 people, you're kind of doing close-up magic.
Yeah.
And I would do gigs at restaurants and, do walk-around, strolling kind of stuff, just with things in my pockets. And that I love. And on the Netflix show, I get to do a lot of that because with the benefit of the camera, you can see something small,
Yeah.
And coming up doing the NACAs and doing comedy clubs, I feel like it's that parlor stay, the big room. I never wanted to have like big stuff. I never was like an illusionist kind of guy. I kind of really wanted it to be about, me and what I had to say. So these days I think, and also mentalism, which is a genre of magic, which is kind of just messing with your head. I find that my act has a lot of mentalism, kind of parlor style magic things, but not very prop heavy.
Right.
I love doing close-up magic, but unless there's like a live feed video camera at the theater, it's hard to kind of do that and connect with 1,000 people at once. So yeah, I'm kind of kind of like that come back to that kind of like that Harry Anderson scale, Penn and Teller as well, you kind of, when you think back on a Penn and Teller show that you love, it's like, it's them, like the things that they do are rarely big boxes and stuff. It's the idea. What were they talking about? They're talking about flag burning. Wow. And there was an amazing, their bit about the Bill of Rights and the flag burning. It's one of the most brilliant pieces of magic. Or their bullet catch. It's
Right.
like everything required for those tricks could fit into a briefcase, but
Right.
it's filling a stage with their personalities and with the idea. And I feel like that's the kind of stuff that I'm most drawn to.
So now that you have a child, and this is, obviously this is, I'm asking for personal reasons because at some point, I imagine Lydia and I will probably have a child.
Someone will, give you a child.
Yeah, and so someone will hand me a child here. But how has that affected? Has that affected you as a performer in any way? Or are you starting to go like, oh, I don't, I used to want to perform all the time, but I have this great wife and this great kid. And so now I feel this push and pull of like, maybe I don't want to be on the road. Or maybe, is that affecting it, like how in any way has that changed your outlook on stuff? Or has it changed the way that you view magic or anything?
I feel like I mean, just as a performer and not even necessarily needing to be a performer, I think just as a person who's trying to manage their time, you use your time much better. Like I don't want to leave town on a Monday and a Thursday and a Sunday for 3 different gigs. How about let's hold out and just do a Friday, Saturday, Sunday so I can leave town and come back once. I want to maximize, the time I'm away from this kid so I can see every amazing, hilarious milestone along the way. I don't want to miss the funny thing that he does or when he walks for the first time. So I feel like when I go to work on something or go to the office and write, I'm not just dicking around. Like I want to, let's do what I came here to do. We did it. Great. Productive. Let's go home and I can, live my life. I feel like it's in terms of like the magic, I feel like I am getting to like discover all these things again for the first time because I'm noticing the details in life and the things that, the trail that a plane leaves when it passes by, seeing that catches his eye, or he points at the shadow of the moon during the daylight and you're like, oh my God, yeah, that is awesome. I fucking see that all the time, but I never point to that thing. Or yeah, that crow is enormous. Holy shit, let's point at that crow. So I feel like it's letting me just reminding me of all these little things around us, which I think naturally is fodder for material. And I feel like, in comedy, it's about noticing the details.
Oh yeah, when you just shut off to the day-to-day stuff because you're busy and you got shit to do and you can't have time to look at a crow. Like you got to fucking
exactly. And it's those little things that we take for granted. We see all the time. We just need to be reminded of what's funny about them or what's magical about them. So to me, that's exciting. And in the show, I feel like since the show, the Netflix show is, I feed on stuff that's happening in my real life, like, just the natural struggle and freak out of having your first kid, no one, and figuring out like every first time parent, I think, goes through that same, like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I feel like this is going to be a disaster, and it works out okay. And I feel like figuring out the funny things about parenthood, breast pumping and, take your baby to work. All these things are just, they write themselves in terms of coming up with new material or ideas to repurpose magic, like it's all about that taking an old trick and making it new again. In one episode, there's the any drink called for classic trick, with an old tea kettle, name a drink. Okay. And I pour, you want a Bloody Mary. Here's red wine. Here's beer. How's he getting all these drinks? Let's do that, but let's do it with my man boobs. And, at a coffee shop, someone wants almond milk. I eat some almonds. I pump out some almond milk.
That was a good gag.
Soy sauce. Soy milk. I pump out some, it was.
That's in the show, by the way.
That's in the show,
fantastic.
and that came from like when my wife was breastfeeding. When you realize that like there's this symbiotic relationship, and that the baby's mouth and the mother's breast, there's like an exchange of, some sort of data and bacteria. Like this baby's letting the mother's breast know what nutrients I need now. Like I was like, that's magic. Wait.
Yeah.
Any drink called for. Let's do it. And that annoys my wife because you can't, as much as there's no 9 to 5 in comedy, magic, or anything creative because it's just when something comes to you, it comes. So oftentimes there will be intimate moments of parenting and I'll be like, yes,
Please don't put this in your act.
Dingle hopper.
Do you need to put this in your act?
Yeah.
Come on, does everything have to be
Everything does have to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the baby's gonna, throw up in your hat and shit on your doves. Like it's just gonna happen at some point. Is the baby? Do you kind of test stuff on it? Because like if a young child is sort of fascinated by something, does that?
I've tried to, gauge where he's at with the object permanence, So I'll do like just a really great, well done French drop where it looks like I'm taking one of the balls and put it in my left hand, but it's in my right, and drop it under the table.
French drop and balls, by the way, all sounded like
French
a filthy.
drop
I did
and
the
balls.
French drop, and then I take the balls.
These are wholesome magic terms, everybody.
That you can do for your kids.
Exactly. And, I'll make a ball disappear, and I was like, because this would impress an adult. And he's like, okay, well, I need another ball. Where's my other ball? Like, so it's not registering yet. But having a kid is great. You get to hang out at playgrounds again, and it's not creepy. That's fun.
No, it's not. It's not creepy.
The other day, you get to wave at firemen again.
Sure.
For years, I couldn't wave at firemen without them thinking I'm hitting on them.
I never thought about that. How much I've been depriving myself all these years.
Just wave at a fire truck, and they'll wave. It's so exciting. When you have a baby, they will wave. They'll all wave back.
And when you don't, they're like, "The fuck is this guy's problem?"
They will not wave back.
They won't wave back at you because they don't want to.
I can't wait to do the trucker. Like,
the keep on trucking.
Yeah.
Well, if your child, I would imagine if your child has the performance gene, you'll probably.
I'll nurture that.
Of
I'm not
course.
going to push it upon him. I mean, I have incorporated him into in an exploitative way so far. Like he's SAG eligible.
Oh, that's nice. That's good. That's good.
Under 1 year, so he's 14 months now. Yeah, I will. I'm excited to see what he does. He's got incredible. He's ball skills. He loves balls. Okay.
Oh, interesting.
Any types of balls.
All right. Well, I don't know if there's anything else to say other than that the authorities have stopped by and they would love to have a chat with you.
I mean, I'm sure every parent thinks their kid's a genius, but like this guy, like these little from the ball pit, like he'll take them and spin them like a top, and I'm like, how does it? It's like a Harlem Globetrotter.
So, do you think that there's any? Because obviously we don't pass on learned traits per se genetically, but. Is there some predisposition? Is there some like weird genetic predisposition that you have that has transferred onto him that, cause like, when you were growing up, when you were 14 months old, if you spun a ball, your parents might not have registered it because they weren't magicians. So they wouldn't have known like, oh, it takes a certain amount of dexterity to do that. They would have said, oh, my kid's spinning a fucking ball.
Yeah.
Now
my kid's going to play basketball.
Right.
Like whatever you link.
Now that you notice that, do you think, I don't know, do you think there's anything to, like, does the nature-nurture argument?
I mean, I'm not, like, a master of, I am okay at sleight of hand, but I'm not a master. I'm not Shin Lim. You watch somebody like Shin Lim or any of the guys you see, the guys and gals in the close-up room who are just doing, coin rolls over their knuckles and stuff. Like, that is not my thing. So maybe that is a learned, a genetic thing that's passed on. I feel like, if anything, because he'll grow up seeing me on stage in front of people, like he'll, every couple weeks, a show will happen that's before his bedtime, and he can come and he'll see, wow, Daddy's on stage and everyone is watching Daddy, and Daddy's where the light is, and light's hitting Daddy, and I can hear his voice. Wow, that's interesting, And if anything, seeing that might just impact him to think about, oh, you can be a performer, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I think you what you see and observe, and especially if it's if it's your parent, it's kind of like, oh, that's the guy who wakes me up in the morning, but here he's in front of a bunch of people and they're listening to him. I don't know what computations happen in a child's head, but I feel like it opens up maybe possibilities for them.
Well, yeah, because you didn't really start magic till you were 12.
Right.
And so he, I would imagine when he's like 3, he'll really start having an understanding of some stuff, so he could have like a 9-year jump on, and you'll really be able to like hyper nurture that because you understand it. Or he might not give a shit about any of it.
Maybe not. But like, my parents weren't performers, so it wasn't until I was 12 or 13, and then it's like Johnny Carson, Jay Leno, Tonight Show, SNL. Like, that's when you start seeing these people, and you're like, oh wow, performing, that's a thing. So he's seeing it now. We'll see if it actually draws him to it or repels him.
What did your parents do?
My dad was an airline pilot.
Oh, wow.
And my mom an interior designer.
Fantastic.
Just good old classic occupations.
Just classic American occupations.
Yeah, exactly.
That's really nice. I'm glad that things are working out so well for you, and that Netflix was the perfect platform for that show because number one, when the first season came out, I think there were 6 episodes.
Yes.
And so we watched all of them immediately.
Right.
And they're not long. They're like, I don't know, 25 minutes long or something. And so you can burn through them really. Like, in a night, you could watch the entire first season in a few hours. And we just watched one right after the other, right after the other, right after the other, right after the other. And it was just it just feels like the perfect platform, of like, oh my God, I didn't have to wait. There were no commercials. I just get to see this unfiltered.
I think as a creator, like, because someone like Netflix, like, they don't really have a brand to service, that restrains you. Like, Comedy Central gave great opportunities, but they also had their demographic and their brand, So
there's no algorithm. Like, the algorithm is going to feed people.
Exactly. Feed people who want what you want. And there's enough people that there's a lot of people within the millions of people who actually really want that thing. And here it is for them. And if they don't have to wait till next week, here it all is. Here's everything.
Are you doing a 3rd season of the show?
We are. We did. We shot 2 seasons back to back. So season 3 comes out in May.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Soon.
Well, season 2 just came out
in December.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a quick turnaround.
Oh, man. Well, where should people go if they want to get your tour dates? How many tour dates do you have coming up?
I've got about 15 tour dates coming up at justinwillman.com. Go to myname.com. I'm doing a bunch of Canada stuff, Kansas City, Oklahoma City, Grand Rapids, all over the place. So come see a show. Come see it in person. I would love to hug you and sign your bobbleheads after the show. I don't have Justin Willman bobbleheads. I should do that. But yeah, I have to say, like, Chris, like, because we have our mutual manager and who kind of, linked us up, like, there have been a lot of incredible opportunities that have come from that for me with the Magic Meltdown and obviously working together on the Comedy Central things. And then also, I think the biggest thing is that you brought me into the fold and treated me like a fellow comedian in the comedy world. Even though I'm kind of like a magician, I'm this cousin, like, you kind of treated me as an equal, and I think it caused other people to also treat me as equal. And I really felt like hugged into this world that I think it really paved the path that led me to where I am now.
I'm always rooting for you, and it makes me happy to see nice, talented people succeed. It just makes me happy. And so the fact that this is working out is, I say to Alex all the time, like, it's fucking great. Like, it's just, when that show first came out, I was like, oh my God, this was the thing. This was the thing that he needed, because it's not like there's a ton of magic on television, Like, it's the live performance. Like, you can be one of those road dogs that just does, like, 40 dates a year. You go to the same, every 18 months you kind of go back with a new act and you tour ad infinitum, and then eventually it starts to, but that's rough. That's a rough schedule. Being able to do something to sort of kickstart that, where it's like, I've had some exposure. I don't have to do 40 dates on the road. I can do 15 or 20, and it still works out. But that was just me it was just a testament to you just being a good dude who was incredibly talented. It's like, everyone needs to see this. Everyone needs to see this.
Well, thanks, man.
So I appreciate it, and I appreciate you, and I'm so glad that that there is another season of the show that's like just a few months away.
I can't wait for people to see it. And what a great feeling it is to be back in a windowless room with Katie. I gotta say, it's been a while. It's very nice.
Yeah, we really tried to
On the same floor.
On the same floor.
Yeah.
It is the
It's
same.
good.
It is the same floor.
Good karma in here.
Yeah, I hope, I don't know. I almost feel like I'm going to have to, this floor is one of those things that I feel like I should put it in my will. Like, I should will it to someone. Like, Katie wants it, so I should will it to Katie, and then Katie will have to, like, do
No matter
something with it.
what structure the floor is in, it is always on loan to that structure.
It is on,
it will go to another structure
It's an installation.
eventually.
It's
Yes.
like it's a temporary installation. If you were to, because you're such a kind of an everyman presentation of a guy, which again, I think greatly helps your act and what you do, especially with the show. If you were going to be like a bedazzled style magician, have you thought about who that guy is and what that looks like, or like
the Burt Wonderstone version?
Yeah, like
of me?
what the costume is and the presentation of it.
Man, oh gosh. I mean, just as a kid magician watching those guys, like, you kind of at least want to let that what's the Elton John version of me as a magician out,
Right.
or kind of the Prince, Like, I think it would be there would be elements of Prince in it, because man, he's like if anyone can kind of do the bedazzle flamboyance, but also just be a badass motherfucker.
Yeah.
That's some Prince stuff right there. So
Yeah. Well, but also that is kind of a strange one, though, because guys like you and I like to be in it with people, and we like the intimacy of it, and we like talking to people. But I think Prince was very much like,
yeah,
I'm here.
I'm levitating.
You're over there.
Yeah, I'm not touching the ground.
It's sort of that, if I remember correctly from my Catholic schooling, there was this sort of pre-Vatican II era where it was like, the priest had his back to the audience, and it's like, you're here to witness this thing. And then it sort of turned, it's like, oh, it should be more communal. It's like, I don't think it's like, Prince isn't in it with you.
What I'm more comfortable
as
with
amazing as he is, he's like, you and I like to be in it with people.
Right,
like,
which means we want to be Springsteen.
Yeah, I don't think Prince goes out and I don't think he did meet and greets after shows.
You're probably right.
He didn't, but you and I like to do that kind of stuff.
But he loved to, he would do long ass shows, but Springsteen, I think, maybe is who I'm a little more comfortable in that kind of archetype. If I'm going to be a rock star magician, I feel like it'd be a Springsteen vibe. I'll do a 4-hour show. He's as real can be. That dude's.
Who are some
prolific.
other magicians that you recommend for people that maybe aren't as that don't have a show? Like who are you liking right now that people should look out for?
Oh man. Well, I mentioned Shin Lim, who's a brilliant. He won America's Got Talent.
Yeah.
Brilliant sleight of hand magician who's on tour with Colin Cloud, who's a brilliant Scottish mentalist who I love, and you could probably catch one of their shows. David Williamson is a comedy magician who's one of my heroes, and most people. He kind of never really wanted to be like, the guy. He's just a magician's magician who works all the time. I think he's on tour with one of the Illusionists shows. There's like a touring brand of like a group of illusionists who tour together. But he's just the funniest. Go see Matt King in Vegas. Go see Penn and Teller. Go see David Copperfield. If you haven't seen David Copperfield, he's still doing 14 shows a week in Vegas. He's a beast, but he's always... Copperfield and Penn and Teller always have... Every time I go see him, there's like several new bits that I haven't seen, and I feel like I want to be that kind of creator that just... If I'm doing it, I don't want to be doing stale and dusty stuff. I became a magician because I kind of... It's like it's a job, but it's also like a hobby. So it's like vocation becomes your vacation becomes your vocation, but you can't turn it off. You just love it.
Yeah.
And I so far I've never gotten sick of just always trying what's new, what's a cool new thing. And I think those guys are legends who put it into practice.
Yeah, there was a guy that I was friends with that I loved going to see when he reformed at the castle named Andrew Goldenhirsch.
Oh yeah.
Andrew's close-up magic is like I saw him do something in the close-up room once that I could spend the next 1,000 years trying to figure out how he did, and I will never figure it out. And I'm hesitant to say what it was, just in case anyone sees it. But
Yeah. I mean, he's Golden Hirsch. He looks like he looks like a wizard. This guy.
he looks like a wizard.
I came up with him. He's from. He lived in St. Louis for a
He
while
has
when I
this
was coming up.
long curly hair, this long hair, this really
Frank Zappa like wizard.
Yes,
kind of
yes,
vibe.
yes. And he's such a soft, gentle guy, and his fingers are like they move like water. Like he's so fluid.
Yeah.
and also an incredible guitar player.
But like you walk out of a show, it's like I don't know if I didn't see a magician. I saw a miracle worker. Like
Yeah.
he creates miracles. He
He's
wants to create an
Jesus-y in
experience.
that way.
Very much. Yeah,
he's very Jesus-y
And
in
also,
that way.
like if you find yourself at the Magic Castle. I'm sure everyone who's booked in the showrooms that night is great, but if you can go down to the bar, go down to the basement, the Hat and the Hair pub, and go see Mike Pashada, who I know you've seen. I mean, he's just, you're sitting inches away from him. You think he's the bartender at first, and then you're like, oh, cute, the bartender's going to do a trick.
Right.
And he just fries your brain.
Yes.
Whenever I take people to the castle, our first stop is Mike, and if we get to catch Mike, I know that the rest of the night is gravy. So he's a gem.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for keeping magic alive.
Thanks, man.
Come back or let's hang out.
I'd love to. This was awesome.
Anytime. Thank you for being here. And then maybe someday you'll teach me a trick so I can become a magician member of the Magic Castle, because I want to go into that fucking library.
Yeah.
Every time I walk by down in that basement, I'm like, library.
The library. I know they
limits
taunt
to
you.
me. It's all
And they
limits to
leave
my
There's no
kind.
doors on it, so just to really tease you.
Yeah. I'm not allowed in there. And I was a juggler in college, and I tried to get in I was like, can I get a magician membership as a juggler? And they're like, no.
You want to go to the juggling castle?
Yeah, it's much creepier.
Oh man, it is. You don't have the balls to get into the juggling castle.
Those are for the French drop.
Yes. Hey, it all comes full
It's
circle.
time for the French drop. All right, the end. It's fini.
So fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
ID10T scanning complete. Enjoy your burrito.